Thank you for your patience, everyone. Will you please be upstanding for the procession? Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, elders and friends, welcome to the 16th annual Dungala Kaiela Oration. My name is Raylene Nixon. I belong to the Gungari people of southwest Queensland originally, but I have lived, worked and continued to learn here on Yorta Yorta country for more than 20 years. I am one of the products of this important partnership between the University of Melbourne and the Kaiela Institute, and I am honoured to be your MC for this evening. Before I begin, I'd like to welcome Dixie Patton, who's performing the smoking ceremony, and Leon Atkinson to do a welcome to country.
Okay, no all laughing at once. It's the first time for me, so you might hear some funny sounds in my voice. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Leon Atkinson. I'm the chairperson of the Council of Elders with the Yorta Yorta Nations Aboriginal Corporation. It's a privilege for me to be here today and also to represent Yorta Yorta Nation, even though a lot of our visitors tonight are Yorta Yorta descendants, so it's well covered. I firstly would like to acknowledge elders, past and present. See, I've got to go my words. Elders past and present, and all community members that are here today. I'd also like to acknowledge Chancellor of University of Melbourne, Duncan. Thank you. The area that we're gathering on today is the homeland of the Kaiela band, one of 8 tribes or clans that make up the Yorta Yorta Nation. All Yorta Yorta descendants that are here in this community and indeed around the world today all started from descendants of our Kamargunja community. The walk-off of 1939 certainly saw our community come to a halt, or very slow, progressing towards some form of economic development at Kamargunja. But it has also seen the possibilities of us getting out of our comfort zone of Kamargunja reluctantly, but we did move. And those people that move have resettled into communities such as Shepparton, Echuca, and elsewhere in Australia and the world. We're very lucky that it happened, I suppose, because our members have got us to where we are today, our descendants. By moving to these communities, we were able to have an education that has allowed us to set goals and to create achievements for our communities and for generations to come. The acknowledgement and experiences we have today due to the resettlement has seen our descendants grow and provide experience and leadership and much needed support networks that continually provide a need that supports and encourages all members of our community set goals and meet their achievements that are on par with the wider community. This helps provide their great future for generations to come. In closing, I would like to thank Justin for sharing his time with us this evening, and I believe as an example setter for where we can go to as traditional owners of First Nations people. Education kills poverty. So in closing, I'd like to welcome and thank you for joining us at the 16th Kaiela Dungala Oration, and I hope you enjoy your evening tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we gather, the Yorta Yorta people, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here tonight. A bit of housekeeping before we get into it. Restrooms are located through that door. Keep walking till you get to the wall and go left. Emergency exits have changed since the last oration. You will not get out if you go directly to my left. The door is behind the black curtain now. This door, and also there's 2 exits at the back. We kindly ask that you switch your mobile phones to silent mode to avoid any interruptions during the proceedings. Please feel free to take photos, but ensure the flash is turned off. We do have an official photographer that will be capturing key moments for this evening. If you have any questions or need any assistance, we have a couple of staff that will be roaming around the back, so just be sure to grab them. This significant event is co-hosted annually by the Kaiela Institute and the University of Melbourne. Tonight we come together to challenge and inspire the creation of a shared cultural identity and to build an inclusive vision of nationhood and prosperity for the Yorta Yorta and other First Nations people. The Kaiela Institute, established in 2011, promotes a collaborative vision and aspiration for a positive future for Aboriginal community in the Goulburn Murray region. The work continues the legacy from the Koori Resource and Information Centre, founded in 1988, bicentennial year. The Institute stimulates the region and its partners to take a strategic approach to building a positive future for the entire community, not just the Aboriginal community. It works in partnership with all levels of government, industry, including Indigenous and non-Indigenous organisations. Our esteemed co-host, the University of Melbourne, has a long-standing commitment to supporting and partnering with Indigenous communities. Through this initiative, the Dungala Kaiela Oration, the university demonstrates its dedication to fostering dialogue, understanding and reconciliation. Uncle Paul reminds us that his partnership with the University of Melbourne dates back to the early 1980s. He talks about the days of Jeremiah, making the community's earliest efforts to explore alternative educational pathways for Indigenous people. We'd like to extend our heartfelt thanks to everyone who has made this evening possible. Your continued support is invaluable in our shared journey towards a more inclusive and prosperous future for all. There are some acknowledgements, and I always get into trouble for this. My sincere apologies if I do forget anybody, but Uncle Paul Briggs, AO, and his wife, Annie K. Briggs, Professor Duncan Maskell and Provost Nicola Phillips, Ambassador Justin Muhammad and his wife, Janine, Councillor Greg James, I haven't seen him, Deborah Cheetham, Frallin, AO, and the Dungala Children's Choir. We have the co-chair of the First Peoples Assembly, Nagara Murray, and Belinda Briggs, Pro-Vice-Chancellor Indigenous Terrakeonis, University of Melbourne, Deputy Dean Indigenous Professor Sandy Eads, and Deans and other executive staff of the University of Melbourne and all other universities that are here tonight, including Deputy Vice-Chancellor Academic of University of Tasmania, Professor Ian Anderson. We have Ro Allen, Victorian Human Rights Commissioner, Mayor Shane Sarley and Councillor Jeff Dobson, and to the elders, Annie Rochelle, Annie Amy, Annie Laurel, Annie Lois, Annie June, Annie Joycey, Annie Beverley, Annie Glennis, Leon and Neville, Uncle Alf Turner, and any other elders in the room that I may have accidentally forgotten. I just want to start by thanking Dixie Patton for the smoking ceremony, and Leon Atkinson for the Welcome to Country. So the Welcome to Country and smoking ceremonies hold profound significance for Yorta Yorta people, as well as many other Indigenous communities across Australia. These ceremonies are much more than formalities. They are deeply rooted in the traditions, culture and spirituality of the Yorta Yorta people. The acknowledgement is a ceremonial practice conducted by traditional owners and elders of the land. It serves as an invitation for visitors to respectfully enter and use the land. It's a way to acknowledge and honour our ancestors and the continuous connection that they have, and the connection that we have with the land, waters and culture. The smoking ceremony is a cleansing ritual that involves burning native plants to produce the smoke. That smoke has healing and cleansing properties and is used to purify the area, to ward off bad spirits, to make a pathway for a brighter future. It's a powerful way to spiritually cleanse and protect the space, and it plays a crucial role in our cultural practices. The ceremony helps to establish a sense of peace and invites positive energy, ensuring that the event proceeds in a respectful and harmonious manner. Both of these ceremonies are vital expression of the Yorta Yorta people's cultural identity and heritage. It is now my great pleasure to introduce and welcome Uncle Paul Briggs AO to the stage for his opening comments. Uncle Paul has been our guiding light in our community, and we are honoured to have his leadership, aspiration and vision with us today and every other day. Please join me in welcoming Uncle Paul.
Good evening, everyone. I'll keep it brief because there's a big mob that want to get to dinner, and give a lot of time for Justin to talk to us. But welcome here tonight, and good evening to all of you that are present, but also those that are joining by telecast and joining into the 16th Dungala Kaiela Oration. The oration was a conversation with the previous VC of Melbourne University, Glyn Davis, 16 years ago about how we might affect change in the Goulburn Murray, and how we can create a better future and change some of the cultural practices that operate in this region. And it started with the design and the work to set up the Department of Rural Health and the School of Rural Health. That's some time ago. I also, and looking at Professor Ian Anderson here, just reminds me of the work that we did when I was back chairing VACCHO and partnerships on the NEMDA, on setting up a NEMDA and creating partnerships in the community with the University of Melbourne. So we've got a. Sometimes people might see it as a long journey, but it's really a snapshot in a moment in time about the role of universities in the future of First Nations peoples, reconciling our history and having a thought about what the future might look like and how we might achieve it. The work with the School of Rural Health was about affecting change on life expectancy and quality of life, and how we might go about that. And as Leon said, about the role of education, eliminating poverty, was to engage our people in the aspiration for education, but to create an optimism and an aspiration for the future as a way of delivering support and aspiration into families to engage, but also to put up with the racism that exists. It's institutional racism that sits internally in the institutions that support this regional community, but they support communities right around Australia. Tonight I wanted to just comment on having the importance of having Justin Muhammad delivering this year's oration, and where Justin came from to do this, the journey from the mid 1980s, work with Community Controlled Health Organisation and the Academy of Sports Health and Education, and moving off to be in the national agenda with Reconciliation Australia, etc. And now a role that is the first to be established in the world. It's the ambassador for First Nations peoples for Australia. There's no other country doing that at this point in time, but I've no doubt that it will stimulate other countries to follow suit and to unite First Nations peoples right around the world. It's a global role. The theme tonight was, and what we talked about then, was to act locally and think globally, which is a challenge for our region. It is very consistent, the role that Justin is now executing, and we are impacted locally by global politics, global markets, influencing regional investment, etc. So it's a collaborative world that we're living in, and it's one there where we're working to bring ourselves in off the fringes and to contribute to regional economies as a way of delivering our own futures. But we do that from a rights position, that First Nations peoples, Yorta peoples, have a right to an economy, and it's the regional productivity that should be driving the investment back into First Nations peoples. We have the opportunity to create a positive attitude to the marketability of the region by positioning the strength of this region in delivering on diversity and emphasising on the values of trust, respect and honesty, that we have to keep working on that. And I think they're attributes of any collaboration, and any team, whether they're local teams inside organisations, inside our families or inside this region, that the notion of teams and how they work together can help deliver the outcomes that we want. So I just want to sort of position that and say welcome to all, and welcome to our elders that are present, and in particular, welcome to Uncle Boydie. Uncle Alf Turner is closing in on 96 or thereabouts, and is a surviving member of the 1946 Premiership team. So there you go. The 1946 Premiership team, the All Blacks, played out of the paddock over there near the Fruit Connection, Dash's paddock. Played 1 year, won the premiership, and then were unceremoniously deposed, which is seemed to be a common trait across the history of Yorta participation in footy. It sort of followed the Cumragunja football teams from the 1890s and 1920s, etc. So we, at the Rumballara, we're about the fourth go at this, at the Rumballara Football Club. But I want to say welcome to these rooms. They're the hallowed rooms of the young people of this, the social rooms of the 14 teams that make up the Rumballara Football Netball Club. So we got in 1997, and we put our footprint down and said we're here to stay. After almost 15 years of advocacy to try and get a club admitted to a competition. And it's not lost on me that I stood on that channel bank in 1992 and bought the bit of land that was sitting here for $180,000, and we wanted to put a footy club where kids can walk and ride their bikes, that families can push prams and be here and be involved without having to wait for people to pick them up and take them out of town somewhere. So this place, and now the Monara Regional Centre of Excellence, is sort of following on the 1939 walk-off, and the 1946 premiership team that cements our footprint in this town, and that we're here to stay. We're here to participate and engage, but our sovereign rights need to be acknowledged. That's of critical importance to the health and well-being and our ability, not just for First Nations people, but for everybody, and that we become part of the collaboration that drives this region. And the world, at a national level, things like symbolism of nationhood, reconstructing the national anthem, having another look at all those symbolism that drive our agendas, our ability to be involved in the Olympic Games, our ability to go to the MCG and stand up when the anthem's sung, get up, put the green and gold on when the Matildas are playing. So red, black and yellow is absorbed and is a part of, and we don't sacrifice cultural integrity to be about that. So it's not a process of assimilation, it's a process of integration. I just thought I'd mention what we're doing, and the 7th of August, you'll be all invited to come and gather on the centre of the football ground and move across to celebrate the opening of the Monara Centre, which is really a symbolic look at what the future might hold. Succession, and I think about succession now that I'm 70. Succession and investment and legacy. These words ring true. We need to be able to live our roles and to leave this world in a better shape than the one we inherited. That's got to be our promise and legacy to the young peoples of the next generations, and that goes for climate and environmental, etc., and the role of First Nations people to contribute to the way in which we approach these things that affect all of us, around, not just here in the region or around Australia, but globally. Here in the Goulburn Murray and on Yorta country, we're reaping the rewards in leadership that has been consistent throughout the past century. We have lots of examples of fantastic models of leadership that talk to the invincible spirit of our people. We started out here. The invasion of our country took us here. We gathered at Cumragunja for the reason of survival, and then we come back out again, and we're in a new phase. That process is not lost on us, and we're reconciling that history. We've lived on our country for tens of thousands of years. Leadership has been consistent, and Justin coming here and delivering this, and he might talk about it a little bit later, but turning up in spray painter overalls as an 18-year-old or thereabouts, seeking opportunity, but grasping the opportunity, having the courage to take opportunity and turn it into outcomes that took him from the Koori Resource and Information Centre to the cooperative, and then took him off into national state leadership in politics and delivery on trying to change the shape of this nation. And now he's in the most demanding role of collaborating globally with other First Nations peoples in the best interest of our country, but also in the best interest of our region. So I want to just leave it at that point and acknowledge those that are in the room, and I'll acknowledge the universities that are present, La Trobe University in Melbourne and Federation University, Tassie University, all part of this team that's coming together to tackle the future with us. And I want to just acknowledge my mate that's been co-hosting the Goulburn Murray Regional Prosperity Plan with me, Dave McKenzie, and his support at a regional level to develop the partnerships and the alliances that we're working for to deliver on this productivity dividend of getting our people into the jobs, into the industries, into the business world, and having it seamless in the way in which we build community. So thanks, Dave. And also, in closing, just to say thanks to Duncan Maskell as the Vice-Chancellor, co-hosting with me for the past 6 years. That's been fantastic, and in that 6 years we've been able to deliver on the Monara Centre of Excellence in that time, amongst other things. So that's something, a legacy that I think Duncan will be proud of, and he's heading back home to London and at some point. So, but we thank him for his contribution, and this will no doubt be maybe his last. It will be his last oration as the Vice-Chancellor of Melbourne University. But we look forward to his continued friendship and engagement with us over the years to come. Him and his lovely wife Sarah. So I'll wrap it up there and hand it back to Raylene, one of 5 PhDs that are sitting with us, and fantastic. And I don't think it would have been possible without everybody chipping in and creating the environment that made that possible, and in particular the Rummelar Football Netball Club, the Resource Centre, School of Rural Health, the Kaiela Institute, etc. So there's more to come in this journey. We've started the journey, and now that we're going to open those fantastic doors in that beautiful building, there's a lot more positive things to look forward to in the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Uncle Paul Briggs, and it feels a little bit surreal. We've been talking about the opening of the Monara Centre and visualising that block of vacant land over behind the South End goals for many years, and it's actually here. So if you have a chance, please go and have a look at that incredible building while you're here. Thank you, Uncle Paul Briggs, for being so generous with your wisdom, knowledge and inspiring vision. It's my pleasure now to introduce Professor Duncan Maskell, the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Melbourne, the Chief Executive Officer of the University. As Vice-Chancellor, Professor Maskell leads the university in its mission to create positive impact through education, research and engagement with the community. Please join me in welcoming Professor Duncan Maskell to the stage for his opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Raylene, or should I say Dr. Nixon, one of our alums. So to distinguished guests, Ambassador Justin Mohammed, Associate Professor and Victoria's Australian of the Year, Dr. Janine Mohammed, Co-Chair of the First People's Assembly of Victoria, Ngara Murray, Uncle Leon Atkinson, and of course all other Indigenous elders present tonight. And you heard the list is quite a long one, so I'm sorry if I don't name everybody, and other distinguished guests. I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands and waterways of the Goulburn Murray, or maybe we should say Kaiela Dungala. I pay respects to Yorta Yorta elders who are here this evening, the future citizens and leaders of our communities. Thank you everybody, and thank you especially of course to my friend Uncle Paul Briggs for welcoming me here this evening for the 16th annual Dungala Kaiela Oration, and for me, as you heard, the 6th since I commenced as Vice-Chancellor. It's going to be my last as Vice-Chancellor, as I will be completing my term of office in a few months' time. It's been a great honour to come to this oration throughout these last 6 years. I've made lots of good friends up here, and it's been a remarkable experience. I am very, very keen. We're going to go back and spend more time in England, but we're going to spend a lot of time in Australia too, I hope. And I'm very keen to be here, not as Vice-Chancellor, maybe next year or the year after. So anyway, I hope I'm invited. Anyway, it has been a real honour to be welcomed by so many Indigenous friends from Yorta Yorta country and at many other locations around Australia, of course. The openness, the friendship, hospitality that I've experienced, as well as, of course, the important business of the transfer of knowledge and wisdom into me from so many Indigenous leaders and colleagues and friends have shared with me over these 6 years. It's a great gift that I will truly treasure for the rest of my life. Arriving in Australia to live here 6 years ago, and now as an Australian citizen, I have learned a lot about and been really quite confronted by many shameful aspects of the colonial past. And of course that includes at my own university. We've made a commitment in the university to truth-telling, and that has recently taken tangible form by the recently published book, Dungala, A History of Indigenous Australia and the University of Melbourne. And I think that's a very important moment for the university to publish a book that is absolutely clear, warts and all, truth-telling exercise. And I strongly recommend that everybody in the room reads it. It's free. It's on the internet. And I hope that other institutions in this country follow suit at some point in time in the near future. While the disadvantage and injustices inflicted by a colonial mentality are real, so is the determination that I have witnessed in so many Indigenous communities, and never more so than here in the Yorta Yorta community, to defend culture and language and the many forms of traditional knowledge that have been handed down from previous generations. And this event, the Dungala Kaiela Oration, is an important part of that work, to defend traditional culture and support Indigenous communities by leading public conversations within the wider community. I'm very pleased about the positive ongoing conversations that we're having to ensure that this wonderful event continues in the years ahead with the strong support of both the Kaiela Institute and the university. And I'm really keen to bring that to fruition pretty soon. I'd like to get that done before I leave. Here and elsewhere, I've seen that Indigenous culture and people today remain powerful and strong. And as I look around at the amazing photographs and memorabilia in this great sports club here at Rumba, I always feel the power of Indigenous history, Indigenous determination and Indigenous strength through adversity. Today's club, with its many participants in sport, is a proud descendant of the invincibles of bygone time, of course. As I've often said before, sport means a great deal to me too. And Uncle Paul sent me a text the other day, and I was coming back from the footy on the tram in Melbourne. But when I look at the photographs of the Indigenous sporting legends here from past and current generations, and hear about the education that's going with it, being supported by ASH, and of course the marvellous Monara Centre for Regional Excellence, I strongly feel the importance of all the work going on around here, and long may it continue and flourish in the years ahead. During my time as Vice-Chancellor, we've had fascinating orations from voices as diverse as educator Auntie Lois Peeler, scientist Wiramu Doherty, constitutional expert Megan Davis, businesswoman and Australian Sports Commission Chair Josephine Sukkar, and political leader, great political leader Senator Pat Dodson. It's fantastic that this year's oration will be delivered by the inaugural First Nations Ambassador of the Australian Government and long-time friend and member of the Golden Murray community, Justin Mohammed. Amongst his many achievements, Justin was, of course, the inaugural Director of the Academy of Sport and Health Education, or ASH, which continues to play a really vital role here. And indeed, the important work of ASH forms a key part of the university's overall work here in Shepparton and in the region. We're all delighted, people in Shep, Melburnians like me, to welcome Justin as this year's Dungala Kaiela orator, I'm sure. One thing that these orations continually highlight is the absolutely vital role of education in all its forms. And Uncle Leon in the welcome today said it beautifully in 3 words: education kills poverty. What could be a better summation of the fundamental value of education than that? It does more than that too. It gives people more opportunities to not just kill poverty, but to become leaders and to become really highly valued members of communities. So I'm so passionate about that. I would have been nothing without education. I was first in family to go to university, and I still feel very, very strongly about the importance and value of education. It's something which can unite us all. It can unite us in universities, vocational education institutions, and importantly in the school system, which I think is even more important than the tertiary sector. And of course, as in the wider community, there are different forms of education that we learn from each other every day. Education is a deep and broad thing that we need to support really strongly. The Dungala Kaiela Oration also successfully highlights the many broader contributions of Indigenous Australians to our nation. From the arts and scientists to politics and sport, Indigenous people have always made and will continue to make an indelible impact on the society that we are. Even in the face of deep disappointments, including, of course, the vote in the Voice referendum late last year, we continue recognising and celebrating these achievements, and we honour the resilience, strength and contributions of Indigenous communities. The continuing project of reconciliation is a long journey, and it's going to require years more commitment across Australia. But while there are people like this, and while we can come together in these kinds of events, I think these are steps that we can take to continue that very important project. This oration continues to provide a welcome opportunity for us to come together, to consider the challenges and to find new energy for driving ever forwards on our journey together of reconciliation and integration. I just finished by thanking everyone for being here and for being part of this fantastic event once again here in 2024. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Duncan Maskell, for your insightful remarks and for your steadfast leadership as Vice-Chancellor of the University of Melbourne. This being your final address as Vice-Chancellor, we wish you well in your next endeavour. We're especially grateful for your hands-on support of the work we are doing here on Yorta Yorta country, including your contributions and support to the Rumballara Football Netball Club and the Monara Centre for Regional Excellence. Your dedication and commitment have made a significant impact. As Uncle Paul said, hopefully it will be one of your long-lasting legacies, and for that we extend our heartfelt thanks. Next up, I'd like to introduce Deborah Cheetham-Fallon, Yorta Yorta woman, soprano, composer and educator. She's been a leader and pioneer in Australian arts landscape for more than 25 years. In the 2014 Queen's Birthday Honours list, Deb was appointed as the Officer of the Order of Australia, AO, for distinguished service to the performing arts as an opera singer, composer and artistic director, to the development of Indigenous arts and to innovation and performance. Deborah will be giving a special performance with the Dungala Children's Choir. The talented group of young singers celebrates the rich cultural heritage of Yorta Yorta people through their beautiful music and voices. The Dungala Children's Choir has touched many hearts with their performances, showcasing the vibrant spirit and traditions. Please join me in warmly welcoming Deborah and the Dungala Children's Choir. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and I'll just invite DCC up on stage. Come on up. We're going to do the lectern dance now, or in a moment. This oration is 16 years. So we think back, what does that mean in our own lives personally? Take a moment. What was life like 16 years ago? Tirikionis, your beard was much shorter 16 years ago. Firstly, I want to say that. 16 years ago, this choir began in this room, in this space, in the club rooms. It's been our home ever since. And I know there are people here today that celebrated with us on the June long weekend when Dungala Children's Choir turned 16. On that occasion, we celebrated by producing the second volume of songs called Dungala Choral Connection Songbook. I remember when I produced the first book and I said, I want volume 1 on the spine. And a few eyebrows were raised. Volume 1? I said, there's going to be a second book. These kids are going to sing more songs, they're going to premiere more languages, they're going to champion culture around this country for years and years to come, and that's proven true, and so we celebrate with a second book of songs. We're diving deep into the first book, though, this evening to sing for you, and also we'll begin with a song that I hope by now you should all know. It's part of our DNA. But so is art, so is song, so is dance. And it comes together in this space in a really, really special way. To have a home is such an important and fundamental ingredient for success. Yep, education can beat poverty, most definitely, as long as it's everyone learning about each other, as long as everyone else knows what we know, as well as us knowing what you know. That's a really important equation right there. But none of that can take place in thin air. It needs a home. And just as this has been the home for Dungala Children's Choir for 16 years, the home of art in the Kaiela gallery is also a really important part of the way that we know our belonging and live our history on this country. And I'm really proud that in this second book of songs, these are all works that were curated mostly from here. Artists, Auntie Rochelle, I see you there today, and it's such an honour to have you here and to have your work in this book. None of this can happen without a home, and I am so excited for this new building to be open on the 7th of August. We belong here. We belong to this land. Dungala Children's Choir expanded 7 years ago to include another group of children, and those children mostly come from Wadawarang country. And in honour of those children, we're going to sing one of the songs from their country, one of their important stories of how the magpies, Pawang, took a blanket from the ground and lifted it, a blanket of ignorance from humanity. And I think that's what we're talking about with education, lifting that blanket of ignorance. And Pawang did that for the Wadawarang people. So we'll sing in honour of those choir members that can't be here this evening, who are living down there in Geelong. And then we'll finish with probably one of Dungala Children's Choir's most successful songs from Volume 1, and that's Bira Mamana. And Bira Mamana was made possible because of the language work that began with our elders way back at Maloga, and then of course Ngamraganja, holding on to that precious resource that is our very identity, that makes education possible, and that is our language. And thanks to Belinda Briggs, who has collaborated on many projects for Dungala Children's Choir, we'll be able to sing Bira Mamana for you today. And if you know those words, please join in. One last thing I would say. These children and a number of others who couldn't be here this evening for various reasons, study, some not well, but we've got the faithful few here. These children will be travelling to Sydney in September to sing my large-scale work, Yumarella, A War Requiem for Peace, with the Sydney Symphony Orchestra in the Sydney Opera House. Why was there always going to be a Volume 2? You're looking at them right here. They're a reason for getting up in the morning. They're why we have this space. They're why we have that new space. They're why we give of ourselves and our knowledge to universities all around this country. And when I stood here last year, there was the possibility, only ever a slender one, that we would get that yes vote. I will remain proud, always, that the University of Melbourne stood beside us and spoke yes for us when many other universities declined to comment. You stood up, and I'll always remember and thank you for that. Let's sing. singing around before. I can't remember where. I reckon we could do that chorus one more time, don't you? Because I think there are more people that know this. It's like an anthem for us. And, thanks to the Briggs family and Auntie Jerry Briggs and Auntie Teresa Clements who did the work on this language, it's handed down to us. It's such a precious resource. I'm putting you on the spot, Jericho. I want you to come sing this. Let's do it from the beginning. And I want to hear everyone, yeah? This is your chance to have your say. Who doesn't like that? Here we go.
Bring a Moses Indian Walla, Walla Yakuye Bush, Gara Bura Fera Yuminaya. Gara Bura Fera Yuminaya. Gara Bura Fera Yuminaya. Gara Bura Fera Yuminaya. Bura Fera Yuminaya. Bura Fera Yuminaya. Mundu Beku Yesu, Rawa Bokna Yuminaya. Gara Bura Fera Yuminaya. Gara Bura Fera Yuminaya. Gara Bura Fera Yuminaya. Gara Bura Fera Yuminaya. Bura Fera Yuminaya. Bura Fera Yuminaya.
Head of the Willen Centre, Tiriki Onis. Tiriki, I'm so glad we kept the Willen Centre in the Yorta Yorta family.
Absolutely.
I think, it had to happen. Pardwang lifts the sky, Pardwang the magpie, realising that humans can no longer live in ignorance, lifting that blanket. Pardwang lifts the sky.
What a country a long time before today. The sky was a blanket on the land. The earth was in darkness and the people were afraid. They tried to find a way to understand.
Thank you so much, Deborah and the wonderful Dungala Children's Choir, for that moving and uplifting performance. Your music truly enriches our event and beautifully reflects the spirit and traditions of the Yorta Yorta community. We are grateful for your contributions and for sharing your incredible talent with us this evening. Now for the main event. It's my great pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker for this evening. In this, the 16th year of the Dungala Kaiela Oration, we are delighted to welcome Justin Mohammed, Australia's inaugural ambassador for First Nations people and a proud Gurrung Gurrung man from Bundaberg, Queensland, but we won't hold that against him. Mr Mohammed commenced his position on April 3rd, 2023, ensuring that Australia for the first time has a dedicated First Nations representation in our international engagement. He brings a strong connection to the community to this role, having worked in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander health, social justice and reconciliation over decades. Justin's career started right here in Shepparton, where Uncle Paul tells us he's traded his overalls of a panel beater for an office attire. He tells us this because he couldn't stand the cold in the shed. He has been extensively involved in First Nations community control sector and has worked in government and the corporate sector. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Justin Mohammed.
See all the faces here, this is amazing. I did go past and saw Annie Kay and said, did she write that introduction, because she sent me a text last Wednesday night after the State of Origin match, where New South Wales somehow won. I don't know. But before I start, it's just so great to be here. There's so many familiar faces and very proud to come back to Shepparton, and I've had the last couple of days just putting my feet back on the ground, seeing the work that Rumballara Aboriginal Cooperatives has done, the Rumballara Football Netball Club today, and it's just been amazing. But before I go any further, I'd like to, in my language, Wanyang, which is hello, I'd like to firstly acknowledge the Yorta Yorta people. As the traditional custodians of this land, which Uncle Leon has given us a beautiful welcome, Dixie did the smoking. These lands which we gather on tonight are very, very important, because the social, spiritual, the economic and cultural links with these lands have never been broken. The relationship with country has continued since time immemorial. And I want to acknowledge OMA, a lot of people have mentioned him, Paul Briggs, his amazing life partner and sometimes cheeky life partner, Annie Kay Briggs. You two as a team have just been amazing, not only for this community but for myself and my family. Thank you. University of Melbourne Vice Chancellor, Professor Duncan Maskell, your commitment over the 6 years I don't think will ever be forgotten, but be careful of letting Paul know that you may not have much to do. He's got a very good way of getting people involved. The co-chair of the First People's Assembly of Victoria, Negara Murray, it's amazing to even speak about this internationally, where Victoria has taken these steps and leaps and bounds, while the rest of the nation had an opportunity but floundered. Victoria seems to keep moving in leadership like yourself and the others on the Assembly. Has been just truly remarkable. My wife, Adjunct Professor Janine Mohammed, my sister, who will hate this but who loves to keep me humble, Selena Douglas, and other VIPs in the room, and many have been mentioned in the room and also online. Just wanted to acknowledge each one of you. I want to pay my deepest respects to the elders, the past elders that have gone before us, but also the present, and there's many elders in this room. Sometimes we say past and present and we just move on, but I want you to take a moment to have a look around with the elders and the esteemed people that we have in this room. It's their knowledge and their wisdom have endured the continuation of culture and traditional practices. And I was only just standing outside before, when everyone was there, we had the smoke, the fire burning, and we're waiting to come in. And in the distance, we saw this figure walking across from the longest point of the car park, and someone said, "Oh, that's Uncle Bordy." He's and he's walking down there, and I think Dixie said, "Oh, he's probably got better ankles and knees than the rest of us standing up there," which is true. But the reason I want to mention, and Uncle Bordy's been mentioned already, I know there's many of elders here, but sometimes in life you kind of go through, and if you ever played sport, sometimes when in the dressing rooms you're waiting for your star player to turn up. When they turn up, everyone kind of gets that second, they grow a foot taller, as they say, and you can't manufacture this, but I was standing out there, and when I saw him walking across and when I knew it was him, my spirit got stronger. So thank you, Uncle Bordy. And finally, but not least, I want to acknowledge the next generation of leaders, elders, game changers that are in the room tonight. I had a chance to meet a number of those yesterday, had lunch and a conversation, and have to say that this community, you're in good hands for the future. There is a really great leadership and young people who want to do and take those next steps and to represent this community and walk in those the foundations that have been built, but to build on those foundations, and you're in really good hands. But as mentioned, I'm the grand man from Bundaberg in Queensland. Very proud of it, proud Queenslander, even though Annie Kay still wants to stir me up. I hadn't received a text message from her for 2 years, but that night she did send it to me. Just to keep me humble, right? However, many of you will know I've also had this deep personal connection with the community right here in the Goulburn-Murray region. A connection that is interwoven through people who are here tonight. Many of you are here tonight. Others who have sadly left us. And the proud and resilient Aboriginal institutions like the Rumballara Aboriginal Cooperative, the Rumballara Football Netball Club, the Kaiela Institute, just to name a few. These have been amazing institutions, and the people that have run them and have led them have created this community that we have now and can celebrate, and I want to talk a little bit more about that later. And we talk about this oration being the 16th, and I know that I was here for the very first one, and probably the second and third, and probably many of the 16 orations, and I played a whole lot of different roles in these orations, from being an MC, responding to the keynote or the oration who made the oration, at the end of dinner saying thank you to everyone so they can leave. So in football terms, I kind of feel that I've been like, running the water, sitting on the extended bench, being named, never getting a game, but I finally made it. So whoever the selection panel was, committee, thank you. But this evening, I'm here as Australia's inaugural ambassador for First Nations people, which has been mentioned. A title I'm still getting used to, occasionally pinching myself when people address me as ambassador or Your Excellency, something I can't seem to get my own family to do without laughing or kindly putting me in my place. I did try to get my wife to call me Your Excellency when I came home. It did not work. However, though, all jokes aside, this role is, as Ambassador of First Nations people, is a new position. It was created by the federal government and appointed by the Honourable Minister for Foreign Affairs, Penny Wong. When the role was first announced, it was described as this: to weave the rich heritage and diverse perspectives of our First Nations into the fabric of Australia's foreign policy. Sadly, though, to date, our national foreign policy had reflected very little of the 65,000 plus years of relationship Aboriginal people had with this land. That also included international connections of trade, customs and ceremony. Meaning this international diplomacy role that I hold may be the first globally for governments of today, but I think I can safely say international diplomacy and trade has been practiced on our shores for thousands of years by our people. So fast forward now to April 2023, when I was appointed as Ambassador for First Nations people. This role was not only to represent Australia in international forums, but also spearhead initiatives that enhance First Nations trade, investment, human rights, climate, diplomatic engagements globally. However, to do this effectively, I had to really ensure that I engaged with the people that this role was going to represent, and that's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people of Australia. So I explained this to my staff and to the office, that I had to make sure that I went out domestically. And in the first few months, we went, and very importantly, not only just to explain what this role was, but to listen to the priorities, the aspirations and innovations that lay deep within our local First Nations communities. And in those first few months, that guided and led and enhanced our international policies on trade and investment, intellectual property, climate mitigation, human rights, you name it, gender equality, health and justice. Meeting with over 100 First Nation groups, organisations, businesses and individuals across every state and territory provided me with that early guidance and expertise as we built the plane while flying it. As the weeks rolled into months, I've had the honour and privilege to represent Australia at key forums, including the United Nations Permanent Forum of Indigenous Issues in New York, the Expert Mechanism of the Rights of Indigenous People in Geneva, the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum, APEC, at San Francisco, COP29 in Dubai, just to name a few. No frequent flyer miles were included, as is the government policy. I was very disappointed, but that's part of it. But together with these key international engagements, the role has seen me recently return from some very important talks with Paris and the French government, the museums and the collecting institutions about things of returning cultural items, ancestral remains, to their First Nations communities. Earlier this year, I played a very central role in negotiations that led to a landmark for the World Intellectual Property Organisation on intellectual property and genetic resources. This treaty is a monumental step for global Indigenous rights. It mandates the disclosure of the source of the genetic resource and the traditional knowledge in patent applications. I could say there's a few states internationally that were a bit nervous to agree to this because they rely so much of just taking and not acknowledging and also giving back. As well as has already been mentioned, we all are aware that climate change is everybody's business, and that's no different for this role. Ensuring First Nations people, expertise and knowledges are not only included, but front and centre of any domestic and international policy developments and mitigation roadmaps. The role of Indigenous peoples is critical in this space, and more, as I travel the world, First Nations peoples' expert knowledge is being internationally sought after. And as we seek to influence and contribute to Australia's foreign policies and take these developments and learnings internationally, we need to ensure all that we do is meaningful and genuine. And we need to have policies and processes and ask questions like, when First Nations participants join government delegations, they need to be given the time, space and opportunity to meaningfully shape Australia's negotiation priorities and positions. When our trade negotiation teams is deliberating whether to include or not include First Nations chapters or exemptions, then First Nations people need to be actively involved in considering such negotiations. Questions need to be asked when Australian aid contracts are awarded to non-Indigenous supplier base on their cultural capability credentials. Who's assessing the claims that they are culturally competent? When First Nations personnel are included in aid tender proposals, have these First Nations people been given the agency and choice over the scope of their contract roles and contributions? All extremely important processes and questions we need to embed for appropriate participation and inclusion of our First Nations people. This role as Ambassador for First Nations people is far more than representation. It is about working to redefine Australia's identity and role on the world stage, ensuring that global and Australian foreign policies reflect First Nations people. But the key point I'd like to make right here tonight is that my role is an inaugural position. It's not only the first such in Australia, as mentioned, but it's the first in the world. Many nations, with and without Indigenous people, are watching this space, watching our government, watching our nation, not only about this role, but the other national steps and aspirations that we have. And Paul, yes, other nations are starting to think about the idea of having a First Nations ambassador in countries like Brazil, the US, New Zealand, Canada are starting to talk about maybe this could be something that could catch on and be more than one ambassador for First Nations people globally. So this is both an honour and a challenge for me. And as there's no blueprint or master plan, it's literally, as I said earlier, building the plane while flying it. And I want to quickly revisit, before I go any further, a special occasion which stuck with me and still sits with me, only hours before my appointment was publicly made. I was flown up to Parliament House. Secrecy, wasn't allowed to tell anyone. When you've got 5 children with social media, it's very, very hard to tell them and say you cannot put anything up. But they did well and didn't do anything. But I arrived at Parliament House. I got ushered into a room where I was greeted with smiles and congratulations and a sense of expectation by very intimate people like Senator Pat Dodson, who was at the time the Special Envoy for Reconciliation and Implementation of the Uluru Statement, Minister for Indigenous Australians Linda Burney, and the Foreign Affairs Minister Penny Wong, together with a number of senior advisors and government officials. About half an hour into these pleasantries, which I started feeling quite comfortable with, Minister Wong then stood up and asked everyone to leave the room, except for Senator Dodson, Minister Burney, herself and I. I can tell you now, at that very moment, whatever excitement I had started quickly evaporating. And it turned to sweaty palms and a couple of deep breaths as I sat there and sat across these 3 very important people, who a number of them I've worked with Minister Burney and obviously Senator Pat Dodson, sitting there. And for whatever reason, I stumbled out a few words and I had to kind of justify why I was there. And I said, with overwhelming, I hurried my words out. And I said, I wanted to remind you that this is the first time that I'm going to be working for the federal government, and that more than 70% of my working life had been from an Aboriginal community or non-government basis. So I've got very little experience as a senior bureaucrat. Can't even believe I said that to them. Without hesitation though, Minister Wong, like she had already pre-planned that I was going to come out with something like that, responded incredibly clearly and confidently. She said, Ambassador Mohammed, we already have plenty of experienced bureaucrats. You have been appointed because of what you bring with you to this role, your expertise, experience and connection to First Nations people. And I share that story with you standing here at the Rumbalaa Football and Netball Club because a large portion of that expertise, experience and connection Minister Wong was referring to was forged right here in Shepparton, where I spent 20 years living, working in a community steeped in Aboriginal community control, Aboriginal leadership and self-determination. So this time that I speak about here in Shepparton has been pivotal where I am today. As already been mentioned, stole my thunder as an 18-year-old panel beater from Queensland, from Bundaberg. I arrived in Shepparton in the middle of winter. I still remember it was a July night, about 2 o'clock in the morning. We drove down. I had a pair of shorts on, a hoodie and a pair of flip-flops. That was a culture shock in itself when I stepped outside to join my parents, who at that time were picking fruit just out here in Shepparton at the regions here. However, I'd never realised what that was going to change into over a course of maybe 18 months, because then I had people who believed in me to take on roles. They believed in me to take on roles that have been both life and career changing. To be able to step out of a box that often society tries to keep us in was exactly what was afforded to me here in Shepparton. And some of those people are here with us tonight. I don't want to get too emotional, but I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, because I wouldn't be here without you, because this is a journey that has been taken by chance, by taking a chance on someone like me, but also that you saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, so thank you. Having now been away from Shepparton for almost 10 years, living in Canberra and Melbourne, but visiting many communities across Australia and now globally, I want to say to the broader Golden Murray community, the strength, vision and leadership and identity of the Aboriginal people here in the Golden Murray is in many ways unmatched, and you should forever value it and never underestimate this region. In short, what equipped me and brought me to the role has been part of this community, learning and witnessing the legacy of what happens when you dare to dream and are courageous enough to break the glass ceiling. You only have to drive around Shepparton and see the images of those who came before us and know whose shoes we walk in, whose shoulders we stand on. The William Coopers, Sir Doug Nicholls, Auntie Marge Tuckers, Auntie Geraldine Briggs, the list goes on. These elders, together with many others, have profoundly shaped our present but also our future. They were not just representatives of their communities and their families, but architects of transformative change, advocating tirelessly for Aboriginal rights to land, self-determination and cultural integrity. And their work and vision for transformation change continues. And during my time in Shepparton, the 20 years, I experienced exactly this. The Rumbalaa Football Netball Club, which we stand in, defied the resistance and being told so many times there was no place like this. There was no place for this club in this region. And now we stand here since 1997, still here with premierships, 14 teams, 16 teams, and this fantastic facility. The Rumbalaa Elders facility I visited only yesterday defied the broader community warnings. Over 700 signed letters of petition were lodged, saying the development like this would see a decrease in the value of their surrounding properties, and if developed, it would become a ghetto. You need to take a drive out there and see it's not a ghetto. It's probably enhanced the value of the properties around them as they continue to develop that place. And the third example, experience, if you look through that window down there, you'll see that big blue bridge. Just 100 metres from here is the Monara Centre of Regional Excellence. It also defied the doubters, the advocates who advocated against such a complex, such a development, questioning if a development like this should be built in regional Victoria or should be built here in Shepparton and belong to the Rumbalaa community. All these achievements were hard won. No easy wins, no free handouts as we might hear, but unshakable dedication and persistence by a few for many. Talk about daring to dream and breaking the glass ceiling. This is exactly living examples of that where we sit right now. Being personally involved in different ways in each of these defining accomplishments, I'm sure you'll agree with me that this was what was considered as high risk, impossible or just won't happen, are now integral landmarks, institutions of Shep Life. 10 years, by the way, anniversary of Shep Life. Similar to these experiences, I also experienced, again, those early deficit responses to this role as the Ambassador for First Nations. In the media and elsewhere, they said, why was this role wouldn't work? How we don't even need this role. And the one that I love the best, it says, it will take trade opportunities away from Australian businesses. Like First Nation businesses aren't Australian, I don't know. Clever journalism. And yet this role and the Office of First Nations International Engagement, since it's evolved, it's become very clear how we need, very clear now, how this is needed more than ever before. Just keeping up with the request for our office and my role to be involved in key issues, including climate, human rights, trade, health, both domestically and internationally, is challenging enough and just in itself. And it's where the aspiration of First Nations people here in the Shepparton and the wider Gulf Murray region dovetail in the work that we're doing internationally. The Gulf Murray Regional Prosperity and Productivity Plan, dreamed of and developed by the Kaiela Institute, aims to generate that mutual prosperity in a region by restoring and sustaining a thriving and sustainable First Nations economy. As it says, until now, Yorta Yorta and First Nations people have largely been excluded from the benefits of participating in the strong regional economy, which plays such an important role in Australia's food production and, of course, globally. And commitment from the region and the state to the plan will challenge the invisibility of First Nations people and flip the way we view and understand the value of Yorta Yorta and First Nations people. It's a model that underscores the necessity of community-driven initiatives, and it's one that strongly influences our approach internationally. It's a commitment to economic development, social equity, and cultural preservation that is reflective of what we are striving to achieve in the international stage. Not just enhance the standing and prosperity of Indigenous people, but to enrich global community and economy with the diversity and sustainability of Indigenous cultures. And this is what makes different and special. So critically for a food bowl economy like the Gulf Murray, What once was somewhat unique to this region, like food produce, transport and manufacturing, can and are being replicated right across the globe. Products that are grown and produced in regions like this, today with modern technology, can be reproduced nearly anywhere. But the one thing that can't be replicated, that can't be reproduced, is this region's traditional and cultural connections to the land and the people we hold here. And internationally, that's what's setting different regions apart from others. But this requires an Australia that can truly, as the Golden Murray Prosperity and Productivity Plan promises, we need to flip the way we view, understand the role of First Nations people in regional economy. The more I travel, in my role as ambassador, across the Pacific, the Americas and beyond, Indigenous rights, values and knowledges are becoming part of the global language, not just human rights, but climate, economy and trade. As I mentioned earlier, the World Intellectual Property Organisation, WIPO, a specialised UN agency, in May this year agreed to a groundbreaking new treaty addressing intellectual property in relation to genetic resources and associated traditional knowledges protecting Indigenous rights. There was over 196 countries that unanimously passed that treaty, including the US, Europe, a number of countries which you would not think would stand and let that go through, did, because we're able to influence the values of Indigenous and preserving and protecting the rights of Indigenous knowledges. Free trade agreements globally are beginning to incorporate chapters and exemptions for First Nations businesses and trade. Australia is the founding member of the Indigenous Peoples Economic and Trade Corporation Arrangement, IPECA, a regional initiative that strengthens an economic empowerment of Indigenous peoples in the Pacific, in the Americas and beyond, with members like Canada, Chinese Taipei, New Zealand and now the US considering membership. This is not just an idea, it is the future. On the domestic front, the Federal Minister for Trade and the Department are honing and sharpening our nation's 2040 international trade strategy that will reach across many regions like Southeast Asia, North America and Europe, with a firm commitment to embed First Nations aspirations and targets within these strategies. Not in the future, that's happening right now. And if I want to bring it back here to home, to Golden Murray, in my opinion, you have the Golden Murray Regional Prosperity and Productivity Plan, which sets you in a very unique position. This plan, a plan that the Senator Pat Dodson referred to as nation leading, a plan that acknowledges the rights of Yorta Yorta people for inclusion in an economy that underpins the sustainability and prosperity of Yorta Yorta people. A plan that proposes $150 million per annum increase in regional gross production. A plan that reframes the value of Yorta Yorta people from a crisis intervention cycle relying on government intervention and tax dollars to an optimistic, aspirational vision, approach that will positively change the course of generations to come. Innovative ideas like this are so often and sadly stifled, not given the opportunity to fly. Meaning opportunity for generational change, which we've heard right through tonight, and prosperity are sadly left behind in history, instead of becoming the bedrock of the future. So in closing, I want to leave you with an experience I had last year, and I was honoured to be able to share a podium with Paul Briggs at the Lowelter Institute of International Indigenous Conference, where he talked about the Golden Murray Prosperity and Productivity Plan, saying that it seeks to build the aspirations and optimism of Yorta Yorta people to follow in the footsteps of Sir Doug Nicholls, William Coopers and many others. And I quote what he said. He said, like our elders and ancestors, we're playing the long game and waiting for Australian people to wake up. And another amazing speaker who has shared this podium as one of the Oration speakers, Moana Jackson, also said this. We as First Nations people have always dared to do things differently, to build the plane while flying it, dare to dream and be courageous enough to break the glass ceiling so we can fully fulfill our rightful place. In his words, it says, we just need the rest of the nation to keep up with us so we can reach our full potential as a nation that we call Australia. If I can leave you with anything, I've travelled and coming back here, the inspiration I get when I see this club, Banara Institute, the Elders facility, but not only just the buildings that stand there, but the progression that this community wants to step forward in. I encourage each one of you, if you've got a position to do so, you should get behind this community, because it's not only going to benefit the Gulf of Murray, it's not only going to benefit Victoria, but it's going to benefit Indigenous people globally. And I can say that from my experience that I've had over the last 18 months in this role. So I'll finish on, together let's look forward and ever upwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin, for delivering such a compelling and thought-provoking oration. Your insights and reflections have provided us with a valuable perspective and have greatly contributed to the success of today's event. Your words have deeply resonated with us and will undoubtedly contribute to the ongoing dialogue and actions needed to build a shared cultural identity and inclusive vision of nationhood. We deeply appreciate your contributions and the time you took to share your knowledge with us. I think we could all agree that Uncle Paul is the king of where there's a will, there is a way. And the Blue Bridge is actually called the Rumba Harbour Bridge, and there's a little bit of a joke where we say we have literally built a bridge and gotten over it. I'm pleased to introduce and welcome Nagara Murray, who will be providing the response to today's oration. Nagara is a proud Wamba Wamba, Yorta Yorta, Dajara and Daja Wurrung woman who grew up in Shepparton and is co-chair of the First Peoples Assembly of Victoria. As the elected co-chair, Nagara is the spokesperson for the Assembly. Her role is to elevate the voices and priorities of community members on the journey to treaty in Victoria. She is committed to meeting with all traditional owner groups and spending time talking treaty with communities to foster nation building and consensus building throughout her term. Nagara is passionate about community mobilisation, power and sovereignty, and law and treaties in our near future. We look forward to hearing Nagara's reflections and perspectives in response to the oration. Please join me in warmly welcoming Nagara.
Good evening, everyone. Firstly, I'll offer my respect to all Yorta Yorta people and acknowledge all elders and the family clans of the Yorta Yorta, in particular the Kalithaban, and thank Uncle Leon and Uncle Dixie for their warm welcome to country and smoking ceremony. My name's Nagara Murray and I'm a proud Wamba Wamba, Yorta Yorta, Jar Jar Wurrung and Dirra woman and co-chair of the First Peoples Assembly of Victoria, a democratically elected body for First Peoples on the journey to treaty. Thank you to Uncle Paul Briggs and the Kaiela Institute for the invitation to come and speak tonight. Also acknowledge President of the Rumballara Football Netball Club, Josh Atkinson, and the University of Melbourne Vice-Chancellor, Professor Duncan Maskell, and DFAT First Nations Ambassador, Justin Muhammad, and his wife, Janine. And thank you, Ambassador, for your inspiring talk. And there's many dignitaries here tonight, and I think Raylene done a good job of covering everyone, but just to also acknowledge all our elders in particular. I won't name you all, but you know who you are. Now, my family has been involved in the fight for justice in this country for over 7 generations, and that fight continues today. And our active participation in the land rights movement includes the 1881 Maloga petition, the 1886 Coranderrk deputation to the Parliament, the 1938 Day of Mourning, 1939 Cumragunja walk-off, 1965 Lake Tyers protest led by my grandfather, Pastor Sir Doug Nichols, and a 1988 letter to the Premier from my grandfather, Stuart Murray, calling for compensation and treaty. And there have been many markers on our timeline where our families have contributed and have been involved in some way in that fight. So all our families that you see up in those photos have all been part of that movement. Our journey towards equality and justice is deeply rooted in a long history of Aboriginal activism in Victoria, where Yorta people over generations have collectively advocated, lobbied, marched and protested for our rights. Like the ambassador, I also grew up here in Shepparton on Yorta country, grew up down the south end of Shep and went to school here before I moved down to Melbourne as a young woman. So I'm honoured to be here tonight to provide a response to Ambassador Mohammed's talk. It's great to learn tonight a bit more about the creation of the First Nations ambassador role and the work that you are doing, Ambassador. It's an important role that you have representing our people and in particular globally. In addition to the culture exchange and the economic opportunities that it could generate, I'll also be fascinated to see what sensibilities a First Peoples perspective can bring to Australian foreign policy. There are a lot of big things happening on the world stage at the moment, as we all know. At the Assembly, we've tried to keep our eye on Indigenous people solidarity internationally, and we've had some really good yarns and meetings with people from Taiwan, from British Columbia, from Aotearoa with the Maori mob and the Native Americans, and we've been able to listen to their lessons and share some of our own reflections on our treaty journey. So your role, Ambassador, is the first of its kind in the world, so I'm very much looking forward to continuing to watch your work and the impact that you'll make. I'm going to respond to some of the words of Justin, but also to a vision that is both profound and powerful, and that's a vision of treaty. But first, I'll talk to building locally and connecting globally. At the heart of our communities lies a deep connection to the land, our traditions and each other, and to build locally means to harness the connection, to nurture it and to grow from it. First, we must focus on culture and revitalisation, and our connection to country, to kinship, to languages, practices and traditions are the threads that weave our identity. By supporting community initiatives that maintain and revitalise these cultural aspects, we ensure that our heritage is passed down to future generations and also enriching our communities and the world. Economic development is another cornerstone. Investing in local Aboriginal businesses and entrepreneurship fosters self-reliance and prosperity. By developing sustainable industries, we not only create jobs, but it also brings in our way of life and our ways of doing business. And the Golden Murray Regional Prosperity Plan is really key to that. Education and skills training are vital, providing access to quality education tailored to our community's needs in a culturally appropriate environment empowers our youth. So vocational training programs equip our people with the pathway and skills necessary to thrive both locally and in the broader community. So you don't have to look far in this community, and the good work of ASH and the role the Monara Centre for Regional Excellence will play into the future. Healthcare and wellbeing are paramount. We must improve local healthcare infrastructure and services and incorporate traditional healing practices. This holistic approach ensures the health of our people in body, mind and spirit, and the work of Rumballara Aboriginal Cooperative, a community-controlled whole-of-life service for our people, are doing an amazing job caring for our mob. As we build strong foundations locally, we must also look outward, connecting globally in ways that honour our heritage and amplify our voices. Building partnerships and collaborations with Indigenous peoples internationally helps us learn, grow and advocate for our rights, and engaging in global forums like the Ambassador mentioned, focused on Indigenous rights or trade and business, environmental sustainability and cultural continuation strengthens our position and influence right across the world. So building locally and connecting globally within an Aboriginal context is not just a strategy, it's a pathway, and it's a pathway to empowerment, to solidarity, to connectedness, to sustainability and global enrichment. By embracing our heritage and engaging with the world, we create a future where our communities thrive and our voices resonate across the globe. Now I'll speak to a vision that is profoundly significant, a vision of treaties for the First Peoples of this country. This vision is not merely a political or legal document. It is a testament to our history, a recognition of our enduring presence, and a beacon of hope for a just and united future. Vision not only holds the promise of empowerment and sustainability for our communities, but also enriches the local, national and global tapestry with the unique and invaluable contributions of Aboriginal people. For thousands of years, our people have lived on this land, nurturing it, protecting it and passing down knowledge and traditions through countless generations. Yet the arrival of colonisation brought dispossession, marginalisation and a struggle for recognition and rights that continues to this day. Despite the adversities, our people have remained resilient, our cultures vibrant and our communities strong. It is time to acknowledge this resilience and strength through a formal and binding agreement, treaties that honour our past, respects our present and secures our future. Treaty will be the realisation of the collective legacy of the great leaders that have come before us. The vision for what a treaty with First Peoples can encompass, and I'll name a few things. But firstly, a treaty must recognise and respect the Aboriginal people are the original custodians of this land and with sovereignty, inherent rights and responsibilities that have never been ceded. This recognition is fundamental to our identity and our place in this nation. A key component of the treaty must address land rights. Restoring and protecting our connection to the land is crucial. This includes returning lands, ensuring access to traditional territories and protecting our sacred sites. It must involve fair management and benefit sharing of natural resources, ensuring our communities can thrive economically while maintaining our natural environment. Culture and language are the lifeblood of our identity, and the treaty will include strong provisions for the protection of our languages, traditions and cultural heritage. It should support educational programs that teach our histories, stories and cultures, not only within our communities, but across the entire nation. Self-determination is the rights to freely determine our political status and pursue our economic, social and cultural development. And the treaty will further entrench Aboriginal governance and representation, allowing us to make decisions about our communities, resources and futures through self-government. This involves an Aboriginal representative body with real power and ensuring our voices are heard at all levels of government. We know that Aboriginal people who assert self-governing power have significant increased chances of self-sustainable economic development, and we seek to negotiate jurisdiction, authority and processes in our communities to strengthen our community governance and promote our rights through local leadership, recognition and participation. Treaties will directly empower communities with the ability and tools to develop and deliver practical solutions at a local level. And a key focus for treaty in Victoria will be accountability. So in addition to taking on decision-making powers on Aboriginal matters, we think the Assembly can play a key accountability role, keeping governments to their promises and helping to monitor and improve all policies and services that affect Aboriginal people. So too many times we've seen the government devise programs and strategies for our people but then fail to deliver on them or stick to them. So a strengthened accountability mechanism can make sure they are delivering and actually working. A treaty must address the injustices of the past and present, providing pathways to equality and equity. This includes addressing disparities. It involves ensuring that our people have the same opportunities to thrive as every other Australian and that systemic racism and discrimination are eradicated. This is why truth-telling is so important and the work of the York Justice Commission and the implementation of their recommendations. In closing, because I know everybody's probably hungry by now, ready to go to dinner. Treaty negotiations between First Peoples and the Victorian Government for a statewide treaty will begin this year. And there will be many treaties, a statewide treaty to cover statewide matters and the local treaties that will reflect specific aspirations and priorities relevant to those areas. We have been preparing for treaties for a long time, and we will continue to gather feedback and get input from our communities throughout this process. And achieving a treaty is not an easy task. It will require commitment, collaboration and courage from all Australians. A treaty with First Peoples is a recognition of our rightful place in this nation and a commitment to a future where our cultures and communities thrive. It is a promise to honour our past, respect our present and build a future together grounded in mutual respect and shared prosperity. Let us work together to make this vision a reality. Let us walk together with open hearts and determined minds, and knowing that a better future is possible for all people that live on our country. And I'm confident that what was a dream for our elders will be a reality for our children. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Nagara, for your thoughtful and profound response. Your reflections have added great depth to understanding and have significantly enriched our discussions today. As we near conclusion of our event, I think what we've heard today is, from all of our speakers, our old people, our ancestors since time immemorial, have done the best with what they can to leave this world in a better place, and that's a responsibility that now falls on each of us. We are trying to envisage a better future for us as well as future generations, and that responsibility cannot be left on First Nations people alone. It's everybody's responsibility. I'd now like to invite Uncle Paul Briggs back to, we've got some gifts to give out. Firstly, Professor Maskell, as a token of our appreciation for your significant contributions and support, please accept a parting gift from Yorta Yorta and the community here. It symbolises our gratitude for the impact you've made and our best wishes for your future endeavours. Do you want to say something? Nagara, if you wanted to come up. Thanks, Nagara, for... Deborah. And to Ambassador Justin. Thank you all for attending this evening. Your presence here has demonstrated a commitment to reconciliation and the prosperity of the Yorta Yorta and other First Nations peoples. We encourage you to continue these important conversations and take the inspiration from tonight into your communities and daily lives. Have a wonderful evening, and we look forward to seeing you again next year for the 17th Dungala Kaiela Oration. Good night.